and welcome back to another video. Today we're taking a break from the commentary and we're gonna actually talk about some books today. I know, what a concept. So I haven't really posted any book reviews since I posted about Great Big Beautiful Life, and that was like a month ago. So it's time. I've still read plenty since then, I just haven't talked about it. So I have quite a few little reviews to go through, and most of these are gonna keep it short, so there'll be a lot of books, but I'm not going to talk too in depth about them. So let's go. So first up is The Understudy by Morgan Richter. I have read one other book by this author that was called The Divide, which I thought was okay. This book I gave 3.5 stars to, and I really enjoyed the beginning. So this is about an opera singer who she's budding. She's, been training her entire life, but she's finally got her first lead role in a company, and this is a brand new production. It's like a small opera company, but she's got the lead. And suddenly her understudy is a little bit extra. Her understudy is physically much more suited to the role, and her voice is very good, but she's not very well trained, but she has connections, we should say, to the director and his family, so that's why she's still here, and she starts to go a little bonkers, doing some kind of crazy stuff to the main character. And so it kind of just follows that. The end of the book does take some crazy turns that I'm obviously not going to discuss here. I thought that the turns got to be a little bit confusing near the end, but I still enjoyed this, and I was pretty hooked on it in the beginning. Like, the first half was kind of like single white female shit, except the opposite, because these two women hated each other, but same kind of just absolutely bonkers pranks, I guess. But yeah, I did want to learn a little bit more about the opera world, and I did, but I wish there had been a little more focus on the opera side of it, but I don't know if that would have appealed to everyone or if that was just a me thing. So I did enjoy this, and I do recommend it. It's a really good thriller if you kind of just want something different, because it honestly is pretty different than most thrillers I've read. All right, next is Sky Daddy by Kate Folk. Now, this book has been everywhere, and I've seen nothing but glowing reviews on this. So this is about a woman who is in love with an airplane. She loves all the airplanes, but there's one airplane she went on when she was a child, and she just fell in love with it. And if this sounds really weird, it was. She, gets in her head that she's meant to be with this plane, and it's her love, and she's the only way that she will ever be married to the plane is if she dies in a plane crash. And there are obviously a lot of casualties that would go along with that, so it's kind of this whole thing. But I just thought it was too weird. As, someone that flies on airplanes for a living, I was excited because I was like, okay, this is going to be weird, but is it going to be really, really good? Because that's all I had heard. Personally, I thought it was okay, and maybe I had different expectations because of all the glowing reviews. I was like, okay, this is going to be really weird, but we're going to get somewhere with it. And we just kind of, I don't know, in my opinion, didn't. It just continued to be really weird. So I'm really glad that this is resonating with some people and they're enjoying it. I thought it was okay. Next book I want to talk about is She's a Lamb by Meredith Hambrock. This was so fun. So this is about a woman who they're in Toronto. Are they in Toronto? They're in Vancouver. And she is auditioning for a production of The Sound of Music where she wants to play Maria. And she is just dead set on this. This role is hers. She goes to voice lessons. She has a vocal coach that she sees 3 times a week. She's got dance training, whatever. She ends up not getting the role, and she ends up being hired not even for the ensemble, but as the childminder. Who wrangles up the kids, makes sure they're where they're supposed to be during rehearsals and performances. And throughout the whole rehearsal process, she is really delusional, and the full spectrum of her delusion just keeps revealing itself throughout the book. And again, this is a regional production of The Sound of Music. And it's professional, but it's regional, so it's still very small, and she is like acting like this is her starring role on Broadway. That's not to discount regional theaters. I used to work at regional theaters when I was in high school. I did some professional shows at one in my hometown, but it's not Broadway, is what I'm saying. Nevertheless, this book was a blast, especially if you've ever like done theater or you're familiar with the backstage kind of stuff that goes on in any kind of theater. So yeah, this was hilarious. It was again one of these like this woman is insane and I can't stop reading. I listened to this audiobook. I got it from Libro FM's influencer program, but I think I want to buy a hard copy when it comes out. I think it's out now. I'll put it on the screen the date it comes out. But yeah, this was just really good. If you just want something really quick and you have any interest in theater, I guess, this is definitely one to pick up. I gave this 5 stars. All right, next is one that I almost made an entire video about because when I finished reading it, I was just so angry. It was going to be like a rage review, but I'm going to just include it here. You know, some time has passed. I've cooled off. So that book is The Shadow Girls by Nina Lauren. And I gave this 1.25 stars, and I still feel like that was generous. So I'm going to try to keep this one short because I literally wrote down every grievance I had with this book. But this is about 2 like teens that are in a ballet school, and it is like some small kind of like podunky school, but like somehow still getting the attention of like big companies. That's one of my grievances. Where's the consistency here? They keep referring to it as this like small school, and like there's other places they could be going, yada yada, but then still like, oh, this main character Anna, she's like the best dancer in the whole world, and like scouts are coming. And so I was just like, what do you mean? So it's about these 2 girls, Anna and Naomi, and Anna's mother is a complete stage mom. She was a ballerina herself, and she is just like so overbearing, way too involved. Naomi's mom like works as a nurse and is just like less involved. So at the beginning of the story, Anna breaks her leg and she refuses to talk about how this happened. So we get like flashbacks and we get a few different viewpoints. So these are very quick things, okay? And I don't know how much sense they're gonna make if you didn't like, since I didn't give you like a huge background on the book, but first of all, they refer to dress rehearsal as costume rehearsal, which I guess could be true, but I've literally in all of my years never heard someone call it a costume rehearsal. And I have danced and done theater since I was 3 years old, and like until I was 25, I was still like doing that. I majored in dance in college. Like I have experience and I've never once heard that. There's also a ballet teacher at the school who like is new this year, and he is so unprofessional, and like I've had some really tough ballet teachers, and they still don't act like this. Like there's still a level of decorum, I guess. And so this, to me, the way this guy acted was like, are you kidding? Are you kidding? As mentioned, if Anna, this girl is like so incredibly talented, why is she going to this little dumpy school that is like in the middle of nowhere? It doesn't make sense. Anna and Naomi, the main 2 characters, are supposed to be best friends since like childhood, but like they literally hate each other. I had at no point was I like, oh, I see like how they could be best friends. They literally hate each other. All they do is like stab each other in the back and just generally be awful. So I hated that. Some of the steps that they are referring to, like a pas de bourrée, she's like, she did this beautiful pas de bourrée, and that's literally not hard. That is 3 steps in a particular pattern. So I was just like, did you ever do ballet, author? Again, she says something is a lunge when it should be called a tombé. And again, these are things that will only bother you if you know ballet terminology and whatnot. The last thing, second to last thing, something that is described in the synopsis doesn't even happen until like 2/3 of the way through the book, which is just like, that's just bad like marketing, I guess. Like if something that happens that far along is like a major plot point, then you should probably edit down the first 2/3. And also, there are so many subplots. I wrote down 4, and I'm not going to say them, but I wrote down 4, and that is, there's more. So, like, that's crazy. That's way too many subplots. This book was, like, doing too much and also doing nothing all at the same time. So, needless to say, I don't recommend it. The Really Dead Wives of New Jersey by Astrid Dahl. So, this sounded so fun to me. Like, it's a spin, obviously, on the Real Housewives and, like, behind the scenes of the show. And, yeah, then there's a murder. So at the beginning, I loved this. I thought that it was so, like, campy and, like, tongue-in-cheek. I also thought it was, like, very self-aware, but towards the end of the book, it seemed like I was like, oh, you're taking yourself seriously. And it kind of lost me there. There was also some weird, like, relationship stuff going on that I was a little weirded out by. Overall, I mean, I gave this 2 stars, which to me is pretty low. I do think if you want just like an easy little silly book, this is fine. But personally, I don't know. I wanted more. All That Life Can Afford by Emily Everett. I gave this one 4.25 stars. I really enjoyed this. So this is about an American living in London. This was like her dream her whole life. Her mom died and she doesn't have a good relationship with her dad. She moved to London for a master's program. And so she ends up tutoring this daughter of this very, very wealthy family. And they like are so good to her and they like let her live in one of their houses. And basically she gets really wrapped up in this lifestyle and she meets new friends and they don't know that she's not actually rich and that she's like living in someone else's house and she's borrowing the clothes and so she just, you know, gets caught up in that and obviously something is gonna go wrong. And yeah, I just really enjoyed this. When I was reading it, I kept thinking of Adelaide, which was like one of my very favorite books a couple years ago. But now that I'm looking back on it, I feel like I only thought that because it was about like a 20-something American living in London. So I don't know if that's a good comparison, but I really thought this was so good. And it did have some slower parts of it, but I was still so invested in like, how is this going to all turn out? Another one, Home of the American Circus by Allison Larkin. So this one follows a woman who had 5 years prior, I think it's 5 years prior, she runs away to Maine, like out of the blue from her hometown. And she's like really struggling financially. She works in a bar. She needs an emergency appendectomy. And so she kind of realizes that like she has no one to help her. She has no money. When she gets back from the hospital, she has an eviction notice on her door. So she literally just packs up everything into her car right then and drives back to her hometown where she owns her deceased parents' house, the house she grew up in, but it's kind of falling apart. And when she gets there, she's got a squatter in the form of her niece, the daughter of her estranged sister. And so this book kind of just follows her like getting back to knowing people in her hometown, reconnecting with her niece who is like very angry with her for leaving town to begin with, and finding out, you know, why did she leave? The way that the American Circus part comes in is that the town is where Bailey of Barnum and Bailey was from and where apparently the first elephant that came into the United States was, and there's like a big statue here, and I looked it up and it's all real, so I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, this was really heartfelt. It did get a little slow at times, but it's really like a character-driven novel, and so if that is kind of your speed, this is a really good book to pick up. I've heard great things about another book by this author that's called, I think, People We Keep, something like that. And so now I'm really interested in reading that as well because I really did enjoy this quite a bit. Next one is A Party of Liars by Kelsey Cox. So this I kind of went into not really knowing fully if I was going to like it, because it's about a huge, rich Texas Sweet 16 party and like someone dies. And then we kind of like go back in time. We get a few different perspectives. And so I was like very kind of hesitant just because I feel like I've read books like this so many times and like they just don't generally have that much new to offer. But I loved this. I gave it 4.5 stars. So I was kind of like, I don't know, is this going to be more about the teenagers or the messy adults in their lives? And it's all kind of related. So I do like that that was something that wasn't really revealed in the synopsis, just because it kind of gave me no clue where the story was going. And so, you know, we find out someone died at the beginning of the book, but we really don't have any clue, like, who, or like who was the victim, who was the perpetrator. And so I think that by not knowing if the story was going to focus on the kids or the adults, that like helped keep that under wraps and like really made it a mystery. The only problem that I did have with this was that sometimes, because we're getting multiple perspectives, I feel like we've read the same scene a couple different times from different perspectives. So that got kind of like long-winded, because it was like, so we have one scene from like Kimberly's perspective. That is a character. I think her name's Kimberly. It doesn't matter. We have the scene from her perspective, and then the next chapter we get the second half of that scene and then going on from another character. And it was just like, felt like we're wasting time hearing this. Sometimes that can be helpful and sometimes it is relevant, but I didn't really think so in this case. But the ending of this is wild. And so I really, really liked this. If you need just like a quick thriller, if you're like going to the beach and you just want to like something kind of mindless but like really engaging, this is a good one. King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby. So if you've read his books, he writes really, really dark thrillers. They could kind of be classified as horror at times, but like not like monsters, like social type horror. So I gave this 3.75 stars. I did really like it, and I think that the reasons that I didn't love it were my fault. So this book follows a guy named Roman who lives in Atlanta. He does something financial and like for really, really rich, famous people. And there's definitely some not so legal things that he does, but he ends up going back to his hometown because his dad was in a car accident, and he owns a crematorium, and so he needs to help his sister run the crematorium, and obviously like his dad's in a coma. So he kind of finds out that his little brother is into some really bad stuff, and you know, people are going to start coming after him. And so Roman's like, okay, I need to like fix this for you. Well, he doesn't fix it. He tries, and things just keep escalating. And so there was just so much like violence, and there was so much like drug references, culture, and like there was one thing that like really, really bothered me about the younger brother, who just kept like doing more stuff that was making things worse. And I'm like, bro, stop. You are the reason that this mess is happening at all. So like, just stop it now. So I was really frustrated by that, like the entire book. So I don't know if that affected my enjoyment level too much. I also I guess I didn't realize it was going to be so violent and like focused on like, I don't know, the gore, which I guess I should have, because it's not my first book by S.A. Cosby. But anyways, I did like it. And if you've liked his books in the past, you'll probably like this. But just be aware that there is so much gore. The Girls of the Glimmer Factory by Jennifer Coburn. I just finished this yesterday, and I really, really liked it. This is a book about two women who are like 20. One of them is Jewish and the other is a Nazi. So we get these two sides of the Holocaust, basically. There's definitely some like little bits of twists in there about their relation to one another. So Hannah, the Jewish girl, gets sent. She's from Berlin, but her and her family relocate to Prague to get out of Germany. And once the Nazis come to Prague, she is taken to the Theresienstadt ghetto. I might have said that wrong. This is like one of the places where they would film propaganda videos. So it's like, it wasn't a work camp necessarily. That is not to say that it wasn't horrible and they weren't treated horribly. And that's something that is talked about in the book, about how like looking back, it seems like, oh, this ghetto was not that bad. Because like they weren't being like completely starved and like they had slightly better accommodations. No, this is all still really, really bad. So then we also get a perspective of a woman named Hildy. She was working for the SS, and then she got sent home for something, and she was living with her mother-in-law while her husband was in the army, and then her husband dies. So she's like, okay, I'm gonna go back to Berlin and I'm going to make a name for myself in the Nazi party. And so it just kind of shows these two sides of things and like how they kind of interconnect. And when I say two sides of things, I don't mean that like the one side is like sympathetic in any way. No, no, no. It's just like we just see two people, you know, I guess on two sides. I don't know. I just don't want this to sound like I'm making it seem like that character is not portrayed the way they should be. Anyways, I really, really loved it. Yeah. And the last book, What Kind of Paradise by Janelle Brown. This was fantastic. It follows a teen girl and her dad who live in the woods in Montana, and they are like off the grid. They are, yeah. Her father is like terrified and like so standing against technology. This takes place in like the early 90s, mid 90s. So like the internet was really, really new, and he is just like so against all of this. And he used to work in tech. And so he brings home a computer one day because he's trying to like write this manifesto and put it on the internet. And so he asks his daughter for help, and she like discovers the internet and like, you know, realizes that like life outside of this little cabin is not as bad as it, like she wants to explore the world, understandably. And so her dad takes her on this trip to Seattle. She doesn't know what he's doing, but they go on this trip to Seattle, and she like escapes. And so then she's trying to make her way in the world. This was so good. I really didn't know where it was going for most of the book. There were definitely like a little bit of tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow vibes. That's very loose vibes, but you know, tech stuff in the 90s to the early 2000s, you know what I mean. But yeah, I gave this 5 stars. I really loved it, and I really highly recommend it. I thought it was going to be like more of a thriller, but it's really not. It's less fiction. So those are most of the books I've read recently. There are a couple more that I didn't feel like talking about, but those are most of them, and I would say overall I had some really, really good ones. There's, you know, a couple that I didn't really care for, but for the most part, I've been having some really good luck choosing books lately. So I want to know what your favorite book that you've read in the last month is, because I always need more. The TBR is never finished. So let me know what you've read recently and whether you liked it or didn't like it, all of that stuff. And if you did like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more of my videos, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!